Hi everyone, today we are going to discuss about implement GraphQL in Nestjs. I have created a brand new application using Nestjs CLI and it's running on localhost port 3000. Let's start by installing required package. We will first install Nestjs GraphQL, Nestjs Apollo server and GraphQL package. Directory we will remove some unnecessary file which will no longer be used. We have removed app controller, app service and also remove its reference from module. Now create a new module. I'm using an extension for that. It's a Nestjs file extension. Which helps me to create easily modules and services. Now I'm creating a new module called users. And also it has been imported in app modules. Nestjs offers two ways of building GraphQL application, the code first and the schema first method. Code first approach, we will declare TypeScript classes to generate corresponding GraphQL schema. In the schema first approach, the source of truth is GraphQL schema definition language file, and schema first Nestjs will automatically generate TypeScript definition or interfaces based on the GraphQL schema. So in this video we will first focus on code first approach. Let's move our users module inside a folder. Now in app module, let's import GraphQL module and configure its configuration. For this we will use for root method, and inside for root we will first define its driver. For this scenario it will be Apollo driver, which will be imported from Nestjs/Apollo. So that we are going with code first approach, we will have to define a schema path. Auto schema file, we will first create a file inside our source directory where our schema will be automatically generated based on our model or GraphQL TypeScript model. To define its appropriate path, we will first import join function from path, and inside it we'll use process.cwd to get current working directory and define its source / schema GraphQL. Okay, now our configuration is almost done. Let's create a resolver first. A resolver is a class with a decorator resolver. and import resolver in our module providers array. In resolver, let's create a method to get our all users. This method will be decorated by query decorator from Nestjs GraphQL. Query decorator is used to make query form based on our GraphQL model. It will define what will be written or how it will be act in our queries, like how many field a user can interact with it or queries it. So let's first, as get all users will return as an array of users, we will first have to create our users model. To create users model, I'm creating a new folder called models. In models, let's create index.ts file. Inside the file, we will create our model. The user model, it will be act like an TTO. So I'm creating user model which will have three property, for instance name which is string, email which is also string, and an id property which is also string. To make it compatible with GraphQL, we have to decorate it with object types from Nestjs GraphQL. And to make it also compatible our property, we have decorated with as a field decorator from Nestjs GraphQL. Now our model is created, we can now use it our resolver. So as this function will return users array, so it has wrapped inside our an array of models. To store our users, let's create a service, and inside the service we will define a temporary variable where we will store our users, which will act like a database. To create service, I'm using this extension. So our service is created and also it's imported in our module. A temporary variable like users, which will be users model. In array, let's create a few demo users. Like it will be ID will be 1, name will be John, and email John. So it has to be string, but let's make it number. Okay, now duplicate it. Now we have two users. Let's create a appropriate two methods to create and get. And to create one will be name and email, and inside we will push it to our temporary variable. And also return the last item of this array. So now we have two appropriate method in our service. Let's use it in our resolver. First inject it in our constructor. Now we can use our user service dot get all user method to fetch all users. Now everything seems to be good. Now we can use our GraphQL interactive graphical user interface to test our queries. GraphQL provides us an endpoint, our localhost /3000 port, which our app is running, and /GraphQL. Now we can make our query. Let's query our get all users. If we hit fetch, if we hit fetch, we can able to see our ID is fetching. If we indicate email, we'll able to see email is included as well as name property. So now our queries is working perfectly. Let's check one thing that we are defined in our app module auto schema file. So if we go to now our schemas.graphql, we can able to see corresponding our model, there is an automatically generated schema file is created. Okay, so now we have an ideas and queries. Let's also implement a mutation so that we can create a new user. To create mutation, let's create a method called create user. Which will be decorated by mutation. From Nestjs GraphQL. And here we will also define the returns type. So as you know, mutation in our user service, create user will return a user object. So here will be the user's model. Now to accept our parameter as a payload, GraphQL provides as an decorator called args, where we will able to see our argument which we will provide in our GraphQL queries or mutation. So let's define our args as a payload and use it as input payload, and in input let's first create a model. So here create a new model. This model will have two properties, name will be string and email property which will be also string, and this class will be decorated by input type. And also the property will be decorated by SB. Now let's import it in our resolver and define its type. Now if we add console log to check what's coming in our input, and also return the user service dot create user. Seems to be good. Let's test our mutation. So open our playground and we have our queries is working fine. Let's first define our mutation. So in mutation, now we have two queries. Let's define its name. For example, let's create new user. Inside this, let's use create user mutation as it's accepted as a payload as an argument. Let's put its payload. So it will have email name will be paste and email. Also, let's returns its ID. So if I hit get user, I got an error because I have not defined this query's name. So let's define it all users. So now if I hit again, the query is also working. Create new user. I can see a new user is created. ID with 3. If I fetch get all user, I'll be able to see a new user created and we can fetch it. So that's an small overview how can we implement GraphQL in Nestjs with an code first approach. Now let's refactor our code base to experiment with schema first approach. Schema first approach is not much different. It's just we have to define, it will just remove our models into an schemas like a GQL file. So let's first create a GraphQL file inside our users module. Inside this GraphQL file, let's define our models or convert our models into GraphQL. So here we will have type mutation, where we will define our mutations functions, and type queries, where we will define our queries. Now let's first define our models, like our user models and our create user model. So in GraphQL syntax, first we will define prefix with type and user. Inside this user model, let's add ID, which type will be ID, and name will be string, email will be also string, and for create user model, it will be not type, it will be int. Here we will have name and email. So now we have our model. Let's define our function like mutation create user, which will accept a parameter input which type will be create user model, and it will be return user. For queries, we have another function get all users, which will be return array of user model. So now we have our GraphQL schemas in GraphQL language. Let's map it in our GraphQL model. We will remove our auto schemas file, which will be no longer used. Here we will use type path, where it will be look on our entire code base and find everything end with GraphQL extension. And now let's make a bit refactor in our resolve. In our resolver, let's remove this model and use it as the definition. The name we use get all users. And for the mutation, let's remove its return type and use this function name mutation. Now we have to also use payload here. Input, let's reuse input here because we define input as parameter in our string. Now everything seems to be good. One thing, we don't need models folder, so we can remove it, and we also don't need schemas file. So now everything seems to be working. Let's remove its reference here as well as its model. Let's put it any for temporary. Now let's open GraphQL and make a request again. We'll be able to see it's working perfect. Now lastly, you can see we have use any, so we can make we should use an interface or model to here. Nestjs provides us a way to make interfaces or classes model dynamically based on schemas file. To use it, let's define a configuration here. Definition. Inside definition, we have to define a path where we will store our interfaces. So let's store in our root directory, create a file called GraphQL.ts, which will be empty. Here will be automatically generated. So let's define its path using join function. And we can also define its output, like how it will be compiled. Output as it can use class or interface. Let's use interface. You can see an error that we have to install a package called previous mode. Let's restart our application again, development mode. And we can see an error. Let's remove it. So now that we have our dynamically typed, let's use it in our resolver first. So we have an any type. Let's use create user model from our GraphQL. Name will be and for users, let's open our service and use here user model. Now everything seems to be strongly typed. If we open our GraphQL, we can see everything seems to be working fine. So that's a quick overview about GraphQL implementation in Nestjs. Thank you for watching. See you in next video.